8 knockouts, 3 submissions, 7 decisions. Is Charles Johnson any good? Meet Inner G, Charles Johnson, a flyweight striker who was on the verge of being cut back in 2024, but now has gone 5-1 with a knockout win over number 1 contender Joshua Van. Inner G's evolution has been a joy to watch, and fresh off a big KO win in Shanghai, it's time I spotlight his hard work and spread the word. Charles Johnson dwarfs most other fighters of his division, standing tall and lanky, but also still maintains a good amount of speed and footwork. His hands are fast, his kicks are sharp, he's hard to hit clean, and his downhill rhythms are a thing of beauty. Charles's career blew up when he delivered a comeback knockout over number 1 contender Joshua Van. And he now has just killed another prospect by KO, the dangerous L'oner Kavanagh. And let me just start off by saying, I don't care what kind of fight style you have. If you give us 4 fights a year, I'm instantly a massive fan. One area of the game that I think people tend to gloss over is activity. And Charles Johnson just can't say no to a fight, even if it's against his best interest. He's had decision losses here and there, but most recently been landing clutch, come-from-behind KO victories. The UFC just keeps feeding him to these prospects, but he just keeps on giving them harsh lessons. Take what they have for him early, then pour it on late and build a point lead, or just knock them the fuck out. And let me just start off this video by saying I love how the flyweight division has evolved over the past few years. Obviously no disrespect to Demetrius Johnson and his reign, but the flyweights of today would absolutely murder the competition, say, back in 2016. Flyweight is a real sink-or-swim division right now, and Charles Johnson has a serious argument at top 10. Hell, even top 5 future matchups. It's quite a tricky situation because Inner G has knocked out Joshua Van, who at the time was unranked but now has blossomed into a title challenger. But rankings exist, and the company won't jump Charles Johnson up the rankings because when he beat Van, he was unranked. It's an unfortunate situation, and if I was Johnson, I'd be salty as hell. He also dropped a close decision to Ramazan Temirov, which killed his momentum, but it was announced last month that Temirov failed a recent drug test. But Johnson isn't crying about it. He's crazy active and wants his hard work to speak for itself. So how far is Charles Johnson going to go? Because at this point, keep him away from undefeated young prospects. I'm tired of losing them. This dude is ready for big ranked names, and I can't wait to see them. But first, let's make sure we know what we're watching. Charles Johnson, a fast-handed, hard-working flyweight striker who thrives in mid-range engagements. Johnson has faced over 10 UFC caliber opponents and many different fight styles, so I personally really value these stats. Sometimes it's hard to get an accurate answer when the fighter doesn't have that large of a sample size, but Charles does. Just keep that in mind when we get to this section moving forward. Strike accuracy, 50%. Strikes landed per minute is 4.7. Strikes absorbed per minute, 3.6. Inner G isn't afraid of the pocket, but prefers the mid-range when he can low kick, look for counters, and ramp up later in the fight. Takedown average, 0.5. Submission average, 0.4. He's went for some really crafty submissions in a few spots that we'll take a look at later in this video, but I would be comfortable referring to him as a striker for the most part. Takedown accuracy, 21%. Strike defense, 58%. Takedown defense, 67%. Great defense stats overall, paired with his recovery in the corner and moments of peril, make him very tricky to cause real damage to. Great example is Josh Van, who landed a ton, but many shots were rolled and Charles didn't have a scratch on him. Johnson moves his head real well and has great vision for slipping punches. He's still never been finished in his pro career, major feather in the cap. Knockdown average of 0.3, average fight time, 13 minutes, 38 seconds. Strengths, fast hands, long reach, great recovery. Charles Johnson wins by staying extra mobile, striking out his preferred range, and avoiding grappling engagements not on his terms. When he does get hit by strikes or knocked down, he recovers extremely quickly and gets back to business. Weaknesses, low strength, bad on the back foot. Johnson is weak when forced on the back foot or pressured by wrestlers. He's a bit of a string bean, but still boasts respectable takedown defense. But we have seen him shut down by big power flyweights like Temirov and even O'Day Osborne. Best performance, it's obvious, Joshua Van. This was a fascinating one because Josh Van was 11 years younger, but Johnson had a substantial reach advantage, so we got to see whose X factor would prevail. Johnson started the fight with tons of front and low kicks to punish Van's forward pressure. He also won in the clinch and secured himself the first round. Van had moments with bodywork but lost due to his slow start and struggling in the mid-range. Round 2, Van had a lot more success pressuring Johnson to the cage and winning the round with nice flurries of punches, but Johnson was still right there with him in terms of the numbers. Then out of nowhere, after a big round 3 hype up from his corner, Inner G comes out and finds a long-range uppercut, knocking out Van and pouncing for a finish. Beautiful finish. He showed elite cardio here, and just how dangerous he can be when he flips that switch. And to land this on a G like Van makes it so much more impressive to have on his resume. Van does his best work in the third round, so for Charles to just starch him like that speaks volumes. Most fun, saving his UFC career against Azat Maksum. Let's rewind back to just the start of that year, and Johnson's career was on the line with a 3-fight losing skid. You may watch this fight and not be overly entertained, but knowing Charles Johnson was on the verge of being cut here just makes this performance so much more satisfying. Energy faced off with undefeated Kazakh prospect Azat Maksum in a spot where he was a decent-sized underdog and his back was up against the wall. Fights on, and CJ hits the deck and is quickly wrapped up in a Darce choke attempt. Luckily, he escaped and found his way back into the fight and got his striking going. Second round comes around and Johnson locks in, ramps up, and attacks with submissions of his own. And this really took the gas out of Maksum. Aaron Bronstetter continues to show us he can't score a fight to save his life, and Charles puts some pepper on the tired-out Maksum, securing a 2-1 win on volume and submission threats. This picture alone goes insanely hard knowing that Johnson not only saved his UFC career, but also took the O of an undefeated prospect. Well done to you, sir. I'm serious. One of the coldest photos of the year. Future matchups: Steve Erceg, Tim Elliott, Manel Kape. If you ask me, it's time for ranked competition for Charles, and no names are off limits. He's gone 5 rounds before in regional shows like the LFA, and has already fought Brandon Royval there as well. Steve Erceg is a tough test that I think Charles is ready to take on. It solidifies the winner as a solid top 10 prospect, and would be a unique striking battle. Erceg is patient and calculated, but low volume, while Johnson likes to throw a lot more, but hasn't faced the top 5 yet, like Erceg has. Tim Elliott is my number 1 op right now in the flyweight division, after setting Kai Asakura's UFC career on fire, so I say book it. Johnson needs a vet on his record anyway, so this could be a good look. If he can stop Elliott's wrestling abilities from taking over, I think Johnson could have a lot of success here. Elliott is sneaky strong, but I think Charles Johnson has faced more physical threats in the past and could get this win. Now, Manel Kape could be a bit too high up for him right now, but Charles isn't getting any younger and Kape needs to stay active. Kape is a guy who fought the now champion Alexandre Pantoja in his debut, so if Charles could find a way to beat Kape, I think this would be a method to fast-track him to the top 5. But I also think this is a nightmare matchup for Charles, as Kape is fast-twitch, dangerous, and a real vet. But he's had close fights with unranked competition before and has a loss to Kai Asakura, so who knows? Flyweight makes my head hurt sometimes. I used to typically pick finishers to beat Charles Johnson, but seeing now that he survived L'oner Kavanagh in round 1 and knocked him out in round 2, I'm starting to change my mind entirely. Johnson's more than proved he's grown from his past losses and is a tricky striking test for anybody. I think you need to bring some serious fight IQ or heavy wrestling to beat him, so we'll just have to wait and see where his career goes from here and who he gets booked against next. There was a time when I once thought this man was just a sacrificial lamb to get Muhammad Mokaev a free ticket into the UFC. Flash forward to present day, Mokaev is a thing of the past, and Inner G is the one everybody is talking about. As always, thank you guys for watching. Drop your favorite Inner G moment down below. MMA makes no fucking sense, but I'm out here trying to put it all together. Until next time.